Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Culture Report. I'm Antonia Velez. Outrage across the country is growing and calls for change are happening over a newly released video of a traffic stop in Florida from February. In it, you can see deputies punch and drag a black man from his car. We do want to warn you, the video may be disturbing to some. The footage shows 22-year-old William McNeil Jr. sitting in the driver's seat, asking to speak to the Jacksonville deputy supervisor. That's when authorities broke his window, punched him in the face, pulled him from the car, punched him again, and threw him to the ground. Body camera video shows that McNeil had been repeatedly told to exit the car. Authorities claim that McNeil was reaching towards an area where a knife was. Deputies later found the knife on the driver's side of the floorboard of his car. McNeil described the incident, saying he was scared and feared for his life. McNeil was pulled over, charged with driving on suspended license, possession of less than 20 grams of marijuana, and resisting a police officer without violence. And in Colorado, the state attorney general's office has filed a lawsuit against a sheriff's deputy accused of violating state laws during a traffic stop that resulted in a University of Utah nursing student being detained by ICE. Attorney General Phil Weiser says that when Mesa County Sheriff's Office investigator Alexander Zwink pulled over 19-year-old Carolyn Diaz-Gonçalves in early June, he did not follow Colorado laws that limit local authorities' collaboration with federal immigration agents. Zwink is accused of uploading Diaz-Gonçalves' information into a Signal group chat he knew included federal agents, as well as stalling her in his patrol car while immigration agents were on their way to arrest her. And when they did, Weiser said he messaged them, quote, "nice job." Body cam footage of the traffic stop also shows Zwink questioning Diaz-Gonçalves about her accent and place of birth. In Colorado, local law enforcement is banned from sharing personal information or inquiring about an individual's immigration status for the purpose of aiding federal immigration enforcement.
I recognize people may disagree about whether or not state or local employees should assist and support immigration enforcement unrelated to criminal activity. But whether or not someone agrees or disagrees is irrelevant to the point that our laws prohibit the conduct engaged in here by the sheriff's deputy. And the young woman, she suffered what she called the worst experience of her life. She was placed in detention for over 2 weeks. She was away from her home, her friends, her family, and she was filled with fear. This action that happened to her was wrong.
AG Weiser said information from that group chat suggests this was not the first time that Zwink has violated state law in assisting federal immigration agents. The AG's office is also reportedly investigating whether additional violations took place by other law enforcement who were part of that chat. And hundreds of Marines mobilized to Los Angeles by the Trump administration last month are going home, according to the Pentagon. A Pentagon spokesman said approximately 700 Marines sent in response to protests against the migrant crackdown are being relieved. This comes after Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth released 2,000 California National Guard members from duty. There are roughly 2,000 other National Guard soldiers still in LA, according to CNN. California Governor Gavin Newsom has called for the withdrawal of all remaining soldiers. Also in California, earlier this month, a bishop who leads more than 1.5 million Catholics in the southern part of the state formally excused parishioners from their weekly obligation to attend Mass, since many are afraid they'll be detained by ICE. San Bernardino Bishop Alberto Rojas issued the formal dispensation after people were detained on 2 parish properties in his diocese. Now, usually bishops only excuse parishioners from Mass under extenuating circumstances like the COVID-19 pandemic, but Rojas says this is necessary because of people's fears that they'll be detained if they go outside. And earlier this year, immigration enforcement in Tennessee led the Diocese of Nashville to excuse parishioners from Mass, but it was not a formal dispensation like the one from San Bernardino's bishop. In Gaza, the World Health Organization's Director General says Palestinians are starving because of Israel's aid blockade. At a briefing this week, he told reporters he agreed with more than 100 organizations who put out a joint statement warning about the, quote, mass starvation in Gaza and pleading for land crossings to open, the flow of food and resources to resume, and a ceasefire agreement. When confronted with concerns about the use of the words mass starvation, the WHO chief said, quote, "A large proportion of the population of Gaza is starving. I don't know what you'd call it other than mass starvation. And it is man-made, and that's very clear." Gaza's health ministry says 900,000 children are going hungry and 70,000 show signs of malnutrition. According to the United Nations, more than 1,000 people have been killed by Israeli forces while seeking food since late May. Israeli officials are denying the allegations, saying they are following international law and providing aid. Now, this comes as the Trump administration once again withdrew the U.S. from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO. The agency is known for its efforts to preserve cultural heritage. Trump also withdrew from UNESCO during his first term. The U.S. rejoined UNESCO just 2 years ago after President Trump pulled the U.S. during his first term in the White House. A statement from the U.S. Department of State says the country's continued participation in UNESCO is not in its national interest. The statement also accuses the organization of contributing to the spread of anti-Israel rhetoric. This decision will go into effect in December of next year. President Donald Trump is facing more scrutiny over the Jeffrey Epstein case. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Attorney General Pam Bondi briefed Trump in May that he appeared on the Epstein case files several times. The Journal also highlighted a sexually suggestive letter that was included in an album for Epstein's 50th birthday. There are many calls from Republicans, Democrats, and even Trump's own supporters for the DOJ to release more information on the investigation. A House Oversight Subcommittee voted to subpoena the Justice Department for files related to Epstein. However, House Speaker Mike Johnson is pushing back. He sent lawmakers home early for their traditional August recess. Johnson said he wants to give the White House space to release information on its own. Rumors have long circled that Epstein kept a clients list. Bondi has announced that there was no evidence of it, walking back a claim she had the list on her desk. And the man who stabbed and killed 4 University of Idaho students in their home was sentenced to life in prison. In the early hours of November 13, 2022, Brian Koberger, a graduate student in criminology at the nearby Washington State University, slipped into the students' rental home in Moscow, Idaho, through a sliding glass door. He stabbed 4 of the 6 students that were in the home at the time. He was arrested in Pennsylvania, where his parents lived, about 6 weeks later. In early July, Koberger pleaded guilty weeks before going to trial in a deal to avoid the death penalty. At the sentencing, the friends and family of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin vented their emotions in sobs, insults, and curse words toward Koberger. When it was his turn to speak in court, he said, "I respectfully decline," and shedded no light on why he killed the 4 college students. And wildfire season is in full swing here in Colorado. Over the course of July, we've had several wildfires break out, burning thousands of acres. Some of the biggest include the South Rim Fire at Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park. The fire is believed to have started on July 10th due to a lightning strike. In that span, it's burned thousands of acres and forced camping closures, affecting thousands of park visitors from both inside and outside of Colorado. Another is the Turner Gulch Fire, which sparked in Mesa County near the town of Gateway. Lightning is also believed to have started the fire. The last wildfire we're going to highlight is the Sow Belly Fire. It's spread into 3 different counties, those being Montrose, Delta, and Mesa counties. Now, while people have gotten comfortable with the term wildfire season, implying it's just a few months in the summer, experts emphasize that the actual wildfire season is a year-round event that needs careful attention. We spoke to Dr. Lori Peek, the director of the Natural Hazard Center at the University of Colorado Boulder, and she says that disasters like wildfires were once seen as a low-probability event. Now, research is showing they're becoming more common and having a major impact on the most vulnerable communities.
Disasters are becoming high probability, high consequence events, that more and more people are being affected. And we know that people with the fewest resources are often hurt first and worst in disasters. And so what that means is that sometimes the most vulnerable among us, they're dealing with multiple disaster impacts simultaneously. And then when it comes to the longer term recovery, we know with people with fewer resources, less social networks, oftentimes they're the slowest to recover. And so that's why we think about socially vulnerable and marginalized populations, because across that whole disaster life cycle, from preparedness to response to recovery to mitigating the effects of the disaster, oftentimes those are the groups that have the least resources or the least power to prepare.
Dr. Peak says most Colorado counties rely on opt-in warning and emergency alerts. However, she says just 40% of people are actually signing up to be alerted. This can lead to life or death decisions when disasters like wildfires hit. So she encourages everyone to sign up. And if you have any kind of disability or barrier, like language barriers, you should reach out to emergency management officials to see how they can help. And a bizarre moment in Colorado history that captured the world's attention is back in the spotlight as Netflix's Trainwreck docuseries revisits the infamous 2009 Balloon Boy saga. More than 15 years ago, the Heaney family from Fort Collins claimed their 6-year-old son, Falcon, was trapped inside a homemade helium balloon shaped like a UFO. The saga triggered a nationwide panic and massive search effort that included news outlets and law enforcement. Brian Willey, a former 9 News photojournalist, was on the ground during the incident.
The sheriff himself had called our news director and verified and said, you know, this is a legit emergency. It was literally like finding a needle in a haystack.
For 2 hours, the nation watched as the balloon floated through the air in northern Colorado. The frantic search ended when Falcon was discovered hiding in the attic of his family's northern Colorado home. Authorities later declared the event was a hoax. Falcon's parents, Richard and Mayumi Heaney, were charged and pleaded guilty. Richard to a felony count of attempting to influence a public servant, and Mayumi to a misdemeanor. The couple later moved to Florida and were pardoned in 2020. And Colorado's poet laureate Andrea Gibson passed away at the age of 49, leaving behind an infinite legacy of impactful words and all the lives transformed by them. Gibson's award-winning work focused on a variety of topics, including LGBTQ+ issues, spirituality, and politics. They moved from Maine to Colorado in the late 90s and were appointed as the state's poet laureate by Governor Jared Polis in 2023. Gibson died after a terminal cancer diagnosis, but as their wife said in a statement, they did not lose a battle with anything. The statement reads, quote, "If you had been there in our home during the 3 days of their dying, if you had seen the dozens of friends drift in to help, to say goodbye, to say thank you, to kiss their perfect face, if you'd felt the love that floored every hospice nurse, you would have agreed. Andrea won." And this year, an iconic piece of Colorado's music scene is coming to an end. Underground Music Showcase, our state's largest, longest-running music festival, is taking the stage for one final bow. It started 25 years ago in a dive bar basement, and since then, it's grown exponentially. This year's event features more than 200 local and national bands performing at 12 different venues. It also employs lots of Colorado youth, giving them the chance to take their first steps into the music and entertainment industry. Even though organizers and attendees have a lot of love for the festival, UMS's co-manager says it takes more than that to sustain an event like this.
This is a music festival, and a lot of times people are producing music, but they're not paying the musicians. We invested in paying the musicians, we built a whole accessibility plan, so we invested a lot of money in mission. We would do it again, and we would do it all over because that is the right way to produce something. What hasn't happened is we haven't gotten the kind of investment to sustain that kind of mission.
Yeah. Even though the festival is coming to an end in its current form, organizers say they're taking steps to figure out what comes next, and they're hoping the input of young people and the Colorado music community as a whole will decide the showcase's next chapter. Don't go anywhere. After the break, we're talking about how Denver could become home to a major international LGBTQ+ sports competition. And following RuPaul's 10th Emmy nomination for Drag Race, we sat down with a group of local queens to learn how the show has impacted Colorado's drag scene. We finally know the name of Denver's national women's soccer team, Denver Summit FC. The name is surprisingly familiar to the National Gay and Lesbian Flag Football League, which also happens to have a team named the Denver Summit. The flag football team has been around since 2008, while the new NWSL team has only been around since July 2025. Despite both groups sharing the same name, it doesn't look like Denver's Gay and Lesbian Flag Football Club will be forced to change theirs.
seemed very interested in that, and there was more of an interest on, hey, how can we partner together, to benefit both of our organizations, and how a partnership with another professional sports organization could really, provide extra visibility to LGBTQ plus athletes in the sports area.
So for now, Denver will be the home to 2 Denver Summit teams. And there's a good chance that Denver could actually become the future host of a major LGBTQ plus international sports competition. Much like the Olympics, the Gay Games are held every 4 years, and in 2030, the event could call the Mile High City its temporary home. Just last week, site inspectors for the Games paid the Denver area a visit to see the proposed venues and get a feel for the city's culture. There's still one more hurdle before we'll know if Denver or its competitor, Perth, Australia, will host the competition. In October, Denver's Gay Games Committee will have to head to the site of the 2026 Games, Valencia, Spain, to show organizers that the Mile High City deserves to host the next iteration. And the nominations for the 2025 Emmy Awards are officially in. When it comes to shows, Severance swept other dramas with a whopping 27 total nominations, and the studio led comedies with 23. Other notable comedy shows, Hack and The Bear, received 14 and 13 nominations, respectively. For acting categories, shows like The White Lotus joined Severance and The Big Leagues. Now, in the realm of reality TV, records were broken. I hope you liked my alliteration. RuPaul, host of the iconic RuPaul's Drag Race, is now the most Emmy-nominated reality host in the awards history after landing nomination number 10. RuPaul is also the person of color with the most Emmy wins, which add to a total of 14. Alongside RuPaul's Drag Race, other media centered around drag is expanding, and with it, drag as a whole. We had a chat with Felony Misdemeanor, Zara Misdemeanor, and Lulu Crystals, 3 Colorado-based queens, about the evolving drag scene and the influence of that media. All right, thank you all so much for joining us today. You all look fabulous.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh my goodness.
Jinx.
So
Yeah.
Word.
Of course, if we just want to do some quick introductions about who you are, what you do, how you maybe started in drag, that would be awesome.
Sure. My name is Felony Misdemeanor, and I started doing drag by accident. I did just recently do a TED Talk where I go into full depth, detail about how it happened. But it just kind of fell in my lap with the circle, my inner circle, back at home with my friends in El Paso, Texas. I was hated drag, and here I am. Now I'm a queen.
Interesting. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. We'll hear more about that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, my name's Lulu Crystals. I'm Colorado's pickle queen.
Love.
Yes, yeah, I make and sell my own pickles. I've been doing drag about 8 years, and I actually started when I saw Mona Lott, rest in power, walk into Hamburger Mary's in her big old feather headdress. You know, she wore the big headpieces and everything, and I was like, I want to go see what that's about.
I'm Zara Misdemeanor, Felony's daughter.
Beautiful.
One of them. I've been doing drag for about 10 years now, and I got into it because of RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, we started watching that, and then I had a friend who did a painting of the Last Supper, but it was all drag queens, and she asked me to be her Jesus, and I got in makeup and stuff like that, and I was like, this is fun.
That is so cool.
And that's kind of how it started. And I've always been a performer, theater, musical theater.
I love that, fellow theater kid. And we're going to get to RuPaul's and all the drag-centered media in a bit, but I'm curious, you're all now drag queens based in Colorado. What is the Colorado drag scene like? What's it like to be a drag queen here? From an outsider's perspective, it feels very vibrant and ever-growing, but I'm curious, like from a drag queen's perspective, what it's actually like.
It's thriving. We have a huge drag scene here.
Love.
As small as Denver is, we have 1,000,001 drag queens. I think that's more than the population of Denver, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah.
For sure.
Yes. Yeah, we have a huge drag scene, and I feel like we're often overlooked. I feel like people kind of overlook us and are like, oh, Denver, whatever. But we have an incredible drag scene and really
Yeah.
great entertainers and performers. And
It's so eclectic.
Yeah,
There are
yes.
all different kinds of drag and, you know, representation and people to tell their stories. And so it's ever changing and growing. It's, yeah.
When you all started doing drag, what was the drag scene like? Like, what are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed for yourselves?
Even just in the time that I've been doing drag, I see entertainers, you know, sticking up for themselves in terms of knowing your worth, you know, and really creating a stronger culture that way of you know, we work just as hard as anyone else to get paid just as much as anyone else, you know, in the entertainment industry. So that's something that I've seen grow and change, essentially for the better too.
That's great. Anyone else have anything else to add?
I think opportunities, like I feel like drag entertainers are really taking up space. We're going to non-traditional spaces, we're going to non-queer spaces, and we're providing this incredible drag experience. So I feel like that's been the growth since I've been doing it. There's so many more opportunities now
Period.
than there were before.
As there should be.
Yeah.
And I started 25 years ago, so I've seen a huge change in how drag has come up. So when I started, we didn't have YouTubes and in drag brunches where it's widely accepted like it is now.
Right.
So it's amazing, and I'm glad to be a part of it still.
From what I know about, you know, either the misinformation or the intentional, purposeful spreading of false information about what drag is, it has a lot to do with public perception. What are some of the changes that you've noticed? We've kind of touched on those a little briefly, but how has public perception and how people approach drag, not from drag queens, but how other people approach drag, how has that changed?
How interesting, what a great question.
I feel like the curiosity is there, and because there's so many opportunities now to go out and see it, people are able to access it more widely and broadly, and I think that is helping, like, oh, drag entertainers aren't bad people. I had a really good time, and so they're being able, or having the opportunity to experience what drag is. And drag is love and joy and laughter. Like, it's just a good experience.
And the kids too, they're exposed to it now. Yeah,
They love it.
They love us. We
Let
love
them
children.
love it.
Yeah, that's another misconception. We love kids.
Yeah.
100%, absolutely. I mean, you know, and I think
Not that way.
not that exactly. Well, and it's exactly that. It's exactly that. It's like on the opposite side of that, though, we see some people who I feel like there's a harder line, a harder divide now, especially with things going on, you know, all over. There's such a people are more emboldened to dislike it. Without knowing anything about us or the art or, you know, I mean, just people that we come across whose lives we change and we don't even realize that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The power of drag is, I mean, it's so great.
It's inspiring.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the media, like shows such as RuPaul's Drag Race and individual queens who have kind of put out their content and grown so exponentially, that has really helped people kind of, you know, open their eyes as to what drag really is, which is beautiful. I'm curious to hear from your perspective how this drag-centered media has influenced, if at all, A, the drag scene, and B, people's perception of drag and queens themselves.
I think it has positives and I think it has a couple negatives. I mean,
Please.
I think the positive part is exactly what Zara said about opportunities. You know, drag is so widespread now. It's everywhere. Commercials, movies, TV, and
On the street.
every bar. It's on the street.
Literally in the
Yeah.
streets.
Yeah. Yes. But also in a little bit on the negative side, there's an expectation of what drag is based on what people see on TV. I mean, we come across so many people who are like, I've never been to a drag show, but I love RuPaul's Drag Race. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's like they're only being fed what they see.
One aspect, one
Yeah.
part of what drag is. Like,
Right.
I think it's cool that drag is now being considered and viewed as an art form, and I think that helps change things. But yeah,
Yeah, the high expectations.
that
Because, you know, on
expectation of-
TV show, they have these extravagant costumes.
Sure.
But, you know, the local girls, we can't afford that.
No.
You know?
And we also aren't just doing an 8-week filming of a show. We're doing this every
day.
Every day.
weekend.
Yeah.
It's your job.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to highlight about the Colorado drag scene, drag in the world right now? Anything that I missed? Anything that you feel like people should know?
I mean, we've said it once already. Zara said it once, but I mean, Denver gets overlooked, and I don't think people should continue to do that. I mean, I think we have a huge drag scene full of powerhouse entertainers.
Really talented
Now,
people.
and with that being said, not everyone's going to be on a show like RuPaul's Drag Race, right? But that doesn't mean that we're not like one of the best cities for drag in the nation. Like, we are really bringing it, and I think people should not underestimate us.
Doesn't mean we're not Drag Race caliber.
Period.
Oh,
that part.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining the show. We really, really appreciate it. I love you all, and I can't wait to see you out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Let's hop into our shout outs of the week. Being a parent is not easy, but it's one of the most important jobs in the world. That's why we're kicking off this week's shout-outs with an Arvada woman who dedicated her life to transforming more than 100 others. Between the 70s and 80s, Linda Lacey fostered 101 children. She said her first foster was in 1969 and worked with social services to make her home an alternative to juvenile hall. At one point, Lacey said there were up to 10 girls in her home. She told our Janelle Finch that the role she took on was not always easy, but she knew how important it was for the children. And a woman is trying to get Elsie, Little Free Mobile Library, back up and running after it was stolen. Melissa Rippey says she bought Elsie 4 years ago and eventually turned it into a free library. When it's in service, it has a variety of books for different ages, and people can take as many as they want. Rippey says everyone deserves equal access to knowledge, education, and books, so she takes Elsie to schools and low-income neighborhoods where people may not have transportation to access books. And we want to give a shout out to someone near and dear to 9 News. Our multi-talented legal expert Whitney Traylor is officially a licensed pilot. He says getting his private pilot license had its ups and downs, but that he's incredibly happy and proud of his accomplishment. We definitely are too. But his journey isn't done yet. He's starting extra training right away to become a safer and more seasoned pilot. Thank you so much for joining this week's Culture Report. We'll be back to continue the conversation right here on 9 News Plus and 9news.com.